Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage of round 9, the last round of Norway Chess 2019. And what an exciting last round it was! We saw 4 draws in the classical games and a win from Yu Yangyi over Shahryar Mamedyarov. Ding against Grishuk was a draw. I'll show you a fragment of that game in a minute. Something very interesting happened there. So was in a bad position against Vasyl Graf, but turned the game around and won the Armageddon. I will also show you a fragment of the classical game between Caruana and Carlsen. It was a very exciting game. And in the Armageddon, Carlsen lost for the first time in this tournament in a rook endgame. And the main game I will show you in this video is the Armageddon game between Anand and Aronian. But first, let's look at what happened in that Armageddon game between Ding and Grishuk. White Ding, black Grishuk. It's the 14th of June 2019. And this is the position after 12 bishop e4 to c6 from Grishuk. Here rook b1 is a good move, or e3 is a good move, but Ding played e4 and that is a bad move. I'll show you this fragment because we see a very nice tactic now. Grishuk spotted it. Queen b6 was his move, attacking the bishop on b2 and pinning the knight on d4. Here rook f2 is the best move, unpinning the knight and defending the bishop. Ding did not find that move. He played queen b3. And now black has a very nice tactical shot. If you want to look for yourself, put the video on pause. I will show you now what Grishuk played. Knight takes e4. What a shot. Taking a pawn and attacking the knight on d4 once more with the bishop. If you take on e4, then bishop takes d4 check is very good for black. Ding played rook a d1. He's lost a pawn. Knight c5. The queens were swapped and knight a b5 was played by Ding. He must have been shaken because this is also a bad move. Rook takes a2, picks up another pawn. Black has 2 extra pawns and Grishuk brought the point home. This is the final position after 43 rook g2 to g6. Grishuk has simplified the position, did not play for a win because in Armageddon a draw for black is as good as a win. So Grishuk gained the full point with that very nice tactical sequence, queen b6 and then knight takes e4. A picture of the handshake, a bad finish to the tournament for Ding Liren and a nice finish for Alexander Grishuk, who had a very tough tournament. Let's move to the game Caruana and Carlsen, the classical game. Caruana white, Carlsen black, and this is the position after queen c3 to d3 from the world champion. We have unbalanced material in this position. Black has a queen and white has 2 rooks. Black also has an extra pawn. Rook e1 was played by Caruana. A very nice move. It looks like it is a blunder because what after queen d2 check? Well, let's have a look. King f1 and then king g4 is good for black. But after queen d2 check, Caruana had seen that he can play king h3. And why is that a good move? Are you just dropping your rook on e1? Let's have a look. Queen takes e1. Then white wins with g4 check. King g5 only move. And we have a very nice fork. King g6, rook takes h6 check, king takes, knight takes, and the c-pawn is under control by the knights. Very nice variation. So after rook e1, both players saw that queen d2 is not a move here. c3 was played, and Caruana said in his interview after the game, he saw c3 and he thought, if he plays c3, I will find something, but I could not find something. And he said that he panicked and played knight f3. He could have won with knight f5 instead. It turned out that c3 was a blunder. After knight f5, we have this variation, queen d2 check, king goes to f3, white is winning. If you take the rook, then there is g4 check. Caruana said afterwards that this move was off his radar. He did not see this move in his calculations. It doesn't matter if you go to g6 or to g5, because rook g7 is checkmate. Wonderful. But as said, knight f3 was played instead of knight f5. Queen c2 check from Carlsen, king h3, and here it looks like black can win with queen f2. But there is knight h4, and again, if you take the rook, then g4 check, king g5, and knight f3 check. The same trick as we saw before with that fork. King g6, rook takes, king takes, knight takes e1, and we still control the c-pawn. So after king h3, queen f2 does not work. Carlsen saw that, played king g6, rook c7, knight f7, knight h4 check, and we got a move repetition. These checks were played, and after knight f5 check, the players shook hands and went into the Armageddon, which Caruana won. A picture of the handshake after the classical game between Caruana and Carlsen, with Carlsen's head cut off. That leaves the game between Anand and Aronian, the Armageddon game. White Anand, black Aronian, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and we have an Italian game. c3, knight f6, and in the classical game d4 was played here by Anand, but he chose d3 for the Armageddon. Both players castled, a6, a4, d6, the knight was developed, bishop dropped back, h3, and king h8. Alexander Grishuk was analyzing this game in a live broadcast, and he said this is Aronian's pet move. He is in love with king h8. In the e4, e5 structures, when he doesn't know what to do, he always plays king h8. b4 from Anand and knight g8. Aronian said afterwards in his interview, "I have so many great memories playing king h8 and knight g8. I won my first tournament in Linares in Spain, a legendary tournament, against Leco with these moves, and I always try to play it. It doesn't always work, but at least it feels good." Very nice to hear those thoughts from Aronian. Bishop b3 and f5, aggressive play from black. b5, a takes, and now we see a nice tactic. Aronian went for it, he said, because he panicked. Alexander Grishuk thought that Anand had overseen this tactic, and this is trick number 1. Aronian tricking Anand with a very nice shot. Bishop takes f2 check. Where did that come from? After rook takes f2, the rook on a1 is unprotected. B takes c6 and b takes c6. Black has a rook and 2 pawns for bishop and knight. Black is fine after these exchanges, said Grishuk. Nice shot, tactical shot from Aronian. Queen c2. Grishuk explained here that white's only chance is a kingside attack, but there is no fuel in the attack. His pieces are not pointed at black's king at all. Black is doing fine here. Queen e7. Bishop a2. White is going to try and trap black's rook on a1. Bishop e6. Knight b3. And now black has to part with his light squared bishop to avoid losing the rook. Bishop takes, and f4. A very committal move, said Judith Polgar. King h2. Knight f6 and bishop b2. It's time to kick the rook off the first rank, especially with knight h5 and knight g3 coming, explained Grishuk, because then we have checkmate motifs with rook h1. So white is kicking the black rook back to a8. d4, and this is a very instructive pawn sacrifice. Anand is fighting for the initiative, and let's see how he does that. The pawn was taken, and then rook e2. That's how a super grandmaster activates his forces. D takes c3, then there is bishop takes c3, and the bishops shine. As Grishuk explained, when you have more pieces, like here, bishop and knight versus the rook, then you need to coordinate your forces against the opponent's king. That was a free piece of advice from Alexander Grishuk. Aronian did not take on c3, did not want to activate white's pieces. He played d3. Queen takes, knight d7, c4, rook to b8, and queen c3. And here Grishuk liked Anand's position. He liked white. This is a very strong battery. Aronian played queen f6. Queen back to c1. Now the black queen is hanging. So queen e6. And here Aronian had less than 2 minutes on the clock for 33 moves. We're only on move 27. And an increment only is given to the players after move 60. Aronian said queen e6 is a cute move. It lures the bishop to c6, as he said. So here he is setting a trap, tricking Anand for the second time. The c6 pawn looks very juicy and Anand went for it with bishop a4. Polgar and Grishuk said he should have played bishop a2 and after rook a8, bishop b1. But bishop a4 was played. Knight c5 and Anand took. Grishuk did not like this concrete play by Anand. He thinks Anand should have kept maneuvering with an almost guaranteed win on time. It's easier for black to make moves in concrete positions. Rook b6 hitting the bishop and now Anand gets tricked for the third time. He played bishop d5 and that bishop will get trapped. It's attacking the queen. Queen went to g6 and there's nothing to be done against c7, c6 trapping the bishop. Anand played bishop d4. There comes c6. Bishop takes c5. D takes c5. And you cannot play e5 here, as was shown in the live broadcast, because then there is a nice checkmate. We always like to see a checkmate. Rook b1. And if you save your queen, then this is checkmate on the board. Anand did not fall for that. He did not play e5. He played queen e1. That bishop is lost. C takes. And here Aronian said afterwards that he should have played king g8 here. He played h6 instead, but he said h6 is stupid. When your opponent has passed pawns, bring your king closer with king g8. We knew that already. But this even applies to top grandmasters, and he forgot about this move. He played h6, and now e5 played by Anand, and Grishuk said that's how good Anand is. He blunders a piece, but it's still anyone's game with these connected passed pawns. Quite remarkable. Rook b3, e6, the pawns start rolling. Rook d3 to stop the d pawn advancing. And here Aronian saw the final position, tricking Anand for the fourth time in this game. Anand went for it with knight e5. It looks good. Queen g3 check. King g1. Rook takes d5 and now it looks like white has a trick. He swapped the queens. F takes and knight g6 check. Anna Rudolph in the live broadcast said, who has tricked whom? Well, it is Aronian who has tricked Anand. Don't play king g8 here, because then Anand wins with knight e7 check. With the fork. King h7, knight takes d5, and white is a piece up. But after knight g6 check, Aronian found the right move. Not king g8, but king h7, and that makes a huge difference. White has to take on f8, and here Anand offered a draw, and Aronian accepted it. After king g8, there is a double threat from black. There's a threat of checkmate in 2 moves with rook d1, and the knight is hanging. So you have to play rook e1, king takes f8, and this position is better for black with this extra pawn. So poor Vishwanathan Anand got tricked 4 times in one game. And Aronian said after the game, what can I say? Sometimes I can be brilliant. Not a great picture from the handshake. We see the knight on f8 and the king on h7. But it was the only picture available because Maxime Vacher-Lagrave was standing in front of the camera in the last few seconds. So the live broadcast quickly switched to another camera angle. That concludes the results of round 9. 4 draws in a classical game. 1 win for white, and in the Armageddon 2 wins for white and 2 wins for black. The final standings of Norway Chess 2019. Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, has won with 13.5 points, but he was not happy. He did not think he played well. Yes, he's a perfectionist. Aronian and Yu in joint second place on 10.5 points. Karana and So shared 4th place with 10 points. Ding is on 8.5, even though he would have been joint first if only the classical games had counted. He was on +2, but did not have much luck in the Armageddons. Vishwanathan Anand on 8 points, and Mamedyarov and Grishuk in joint last place with 5.5. There are many people who like this experiment with the reduced time controls in the classical games and then the Armageddon games. There are also many people who do not like it. But whatever you think about this experiment, we have seen some very exciting chess. I want to thank you for following Norway Chess 2019 with me. If you have not seen all the videos of the coverage, the link to the playlist is in the description box of this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.